Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to move on a little bit, and I thought I would talk a little bit about routing. And this is not going to be a finished solution because, to be honest, I haven't figured it all out myself. But I'll take you on the journey that I went through messing around with this yesterday, and please feel free to contribute thoughts and ideas, and where we should go next with this, and you'll see why it's not complete. But so I've already started my application here. This is just where it left off yesterday. So if we go to our REPL here, and if we type in, again, what like we did yesterday, President Scroob, and thought I would change the password this time, and it just sends it here. No big deal. So let's clean this up a little bit before we get started. So why don't we say, why don't we make these state and events. And then these will be our components. Just to organize the code a little bit, not really changing anything here. So it's our input box and our login box, and then these will be our pages. And we'll change the main component to the main page because it is a page. And so why don't we call this utilities. Maybe we'll change this before, but this is something I've been doing for years. I put these little blocks between areas of my code. Eventually you'd factor this out into separate modules, but this is still pretty small and it's just demo purposes. So what I wanted to do is, I wanted to say, like, well, let's talk about routing on this. Like, let's talk about the idea that we can click on things in a page and it would go to another page, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I thought I would do was like, well, okay, there's got to be a good Clojurescript way to do this. So, I looked up Clojurescript routing. Okay, there's a secretary thing that I found, and then I found with secretary there was questions about it not being maintained, and then I found I think it's BD Clojurescript routing, something like that. BD, and then I looked, that might be promising, but then what I noticed here is it failed on this build, so I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I don't want to look at that, and then I found this guy over here, but anyway, I looked at all of these, and they were just like really complicated. It's like, oh, bi-directional routing, you can set this up and that up and all these crazy things, and it's really powerful, and they can do like this particular library looks really cool and it does lots of stuff, but I'm like, I'm just a guy right now in his apartment throwing together some toy stuff. I just want to be able to say, when you go to click on this button, it goes to this page without reloading everything. That's it. So I'm like, it can't be that complicated. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. I didn't know at the time. So I decided, let me just try to figure this out. Maybe it's not that bad to write it ourselves. The other thing I found here is a lot of these routing libraries, like, there's the part that just did some transformations from, like, /API in this case to other stuff, and then it still had to hook into something else to do the actual web routing. Now again, if I'm doing something industrial strength, I may very well come back to this site and figure it out, but I'm just doing small things, and part of my personality is I like understanding the platform that my code lives on. So I'm not that comfortable using something that I just can take some boilerplate and copy and like change some values and hope that it works. Not that I don't have confidence in people who are writing these libraries and modules for us. I think my big fear is not that their thing won't work, is that if I don't really understand it, I'm not going to be using it right, or I might be using it under false pretenses. And so when I try to do something else, it's not going to work because I'm not using it the way it should be used. And then I'm screwed. So I want to understand more. So I decided, let me just poke around. So what if I do like JavaScript routing, and I searched for JavaScript routing, and I've searched for a few other things as well. I searched for client-side routing, a whole bunch of these, and and the reason I went for JavaScript is I wanted to know how this actually worked at the JavaScript level, and then I would figure it out. And I found a couple of sites like this one here, writing a JavaScript web framework, and then this one here, a JavaScript router in 20 lines, that were really helpful. And so I read those pages. I read a whole bunch of other pages that weren't helpful, but I'll tell you what I found as we go along. But before we even do this, let's build some more pages so we can actually route. And before that, why don't we let's build a nav bar. Just because, if we're going to do routing, we want, we want to have some menu. So what we're going to do is let's make a div, and we'll style this afterwards. And we're going to need some anchors, and the anchor will have an href. And why don't we make just nothing, and that's going to be for home. And then we'll make one for about, and that'll be an about page. And we'll make one for help, and that will be a help page. And let's put this into our page. We only have one page so far, but we'll just put our nav bar up here. And it's not quite right. Not sure why. Mount main component is not going to work because I changed it to main page because it's no longer a component. It is a page. And it's not a pag, it's a page. Okay. So now that's our nav bar up there. It doesn't look so good. So why don't we add a black background? Let's start with that. Let's make the width full. Let's make the text white. And let's make padding 4 and margin 4 just to start with this. And I don't really want that 4 margin around the side and the top, so let's just make a bottom margin 4. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. And I've got these guys that I can click, but let's style them a little bit. And I could, so why don't we just add a little bit of a margin and a px3 for x padding 3, y padding a little bit less. And let's add a border of 2. That looks reasonable. I mean, I'm not much of a designer, so I'm not going to, I'm not going to stress on this. And that looks pretty good. And what we do is let's also put this into a flexbox container, and we'll make it a flex reverse. Is that what I wanted to do? Flex row reverse. And I put some notes on the side. So flex row reverse. Okay. And that would put it on the other side. Well, you know what? I liked it on the other side, but I'm going to leave it on this side for the simple reason that it's easier to see this and this just the way I have this set up for the demo. But what I'd probably do is I go back to the row reverse at another point. So now I've got my bar here, and maybe let's make that a little bit less, bring it up a little bit. Okay, fine. Yeah, okay, so that's fine, I think. We're good right now. And let's make a couple of other pages. So why don't we make a about page, and this will just be a div. We will put in the nav bar, and we'll just say that the about page, make that a 4XL. And we'll make a help page, this help page. Okay, I'm going in Frankenstein speak. So I've got my components. So what I'm going to do is, that's about page and help page. I'm just going to say mount help page, and that works. And we're going to mount the about page, and that works. And I'm going to go back and mount the main page. Okay, so all these pages mount, and that's all good. So now I had to figure out how to deal with the routing. So one of the things that that I found on those websites is there an event called hash change, and hash change comes up every time, like every time this part. So if we have our website, localhost 8080, and if it goes hash about, when that changes, it's going to go to, it's going to issue that event. And so like if you note up top here, when I go home, it's just home, then it's about, and then it's help. So every time I click these, that hash change event should happen. The question I had though is, how can I figure out what was done? So I'm like, well, okay, I know that I've got this thing called JS window, and that's my JavaScript window, and that's what the events are all happening on. And let me just come over to here, and if I go JS window, it's an object, but I'm like, I got to find what's in the object. I got to find out, like, how do I find out what the components are of this to figure out where this guy is here. Now, of course, I can Google this and look around, but I could also, I was like, I should be able to do that. Well, what if I PRN it? That didn't work. What if I PRN the JavaScript to CLJ of, and I'm like trying to figure this out. What if I pretty print it, but it's a JavaScript object? And I'm like, stop being a dope. I got my console here. Let me clear my console. Let me make my console a little bit bigger. And I've got my window, JS window. That's my window. And I could either do window dot, and it's going to bring up all my completions here, or I can click on it. And if I click on it, I can then get all of the stuff that's on the window. So if I window, it turns out that there's a whole bunch of things I can get. I can get window location, and that's window location. And window location has got the hash. It's got the path name. It's got it's got all of these things that I can get to. So so let's go back here. Let's reload this page with nothing here. Let's go over to here, and we can say, why don't we look at, and again, I wrote my notes on the side because I always mess up this, the location of JS window, and that's going to still be the object for that, but let's look at the location dot hash, and there's nothing there. But if I click on about, and notice we got about up there, now it's about. So I'm seeing now that I can actually get my location, I can get the hash on it. I can detect that it changes with the hash change event. And then what I can also do is then I can get what the actual hash is. Now there's something else that I discovered. There's also the path. And the path is what happens when I, if I went to, let's say, without the hash symbol, I go to just about. If I now look at the hash, there is no hash. I thought it was path name. But the path name is about. Now, I haven't figured out how to do the routing without the hash in a way that it doesn't reload the page. It doesn't do that flash reload thing. So hopefully one of you out there who already knows how to do this, but are just watching the video anyway, will be able to, in the comments say, hey, just do it this way. But that will let me get the location of the path when I figure that part out. So let's start putting this together. Let's start by saying, and again, I gave myself some notes before. I'm going to start by saying, let's make some routes. and this is just going to be a dictionary. And so my routes are going to be the about is just going to load the about page, help, and it's going to be hash about and hash help. That's going to be the help page. Nothing is going to be the main page. And we can make the default. Why don't we make the default the about page as well? So anyway, so we got this going here. We've got our routes, not a big deal. And now what we want to do is we want to be able to handle the routes. So to be able to handle the routes, we're going to basically say, we're going to make a new function. And what this function is going to do, it's going to get my routes. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up the new location. So location is going to be the location hash of JS window. And that's exactly what we did before, that what I just showed you from here. Last location hash showing where we're at. Now I'm also going to put up here is that the path name is going to be location path name of JS window. And I've commented this out, but I'm putting this up there because I know by the time I get to the point where I want to go back to working with this, I'm going to totally forget what it is, and it'll be easier if it's just in there somewhere. So our new page is going to be, we're going to get from routes that location. So we'll get about, help, or main. But what happens if the location isn't there? That's what our other thing is here. That's going to be, what do we get? What do we return if it's not in the dictionary? And for that, what we're going to get is we're going to get from the routes the default. All right, so what that's going to do is basically, if there's nothing in, if location isn't in the routes, we specify some hash that doesn't exist, it's just going to get, it's going to call it again and get our default page. And so now what we're going to do is let's just, when we click on, let's print out the location and the new page. So let's come back to here and let's click on about a couple times. Well, let's reload the page. Oh, that's not running, of course. Sorry about that. So notice that let's reload this from nowhere. I haven't added the event handler yet. So let's come to the main page here. Let's come to here and let's go with, let's see what our routes are. Those are our routes. So let's handle routes of routes. And it prints out nothing and the main page. And it shouldn't really be printing out the main page. It should be printing out the about page. Oh no, because nothing is the default. That's correct. Let's click on about here. And so now it prints out the about page. So that's correct. Let's go to the about where we'll add a bunch of stuff to it. That should also give us the about page. But if we click over on help, having trouble seeing this. Why is it not sure why it's not doing that, right? Now it's help. Main about help, maybe because I manually did it. So if it's help, it's going to be help. Main page, there's nothing after that. So now we're actually seeing that it's pretty much correct. What we want to do here is we're going to do the about, or we'll click on the about. And what we'll do here is instead of printing these, let's instead, and I found this I found this basically on on those pages that I want to just set my state on the history to be my new location, which is going to be the hash, and then I'm going to call my mount routine on the new page. So now if I go back to here and I say handle for the routes and I have up there the about page, it switches to the about page. And if I click on help, so that's now help, and I do that, it goes back to the help page. So all I have to do to tie this all together is, let's say, make another thing. Let's set up the router. And to set up the routers, what we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener on JS window on hash change. And what we're going to do is we're going to call handle routes on the routes, and we'll pass in if there's, any other parameter in there. I think it might, I should write this correctly, handle routes. I think it might actually pass an event, but if it doesn't, it's okay. So now we're going to add the event listener, but I also want to handle the routes right now. And I want to handle the routes right now with routes and nil. And the reason I want to do that is because instead of mounting the main page, I'm just going to say handle routes of routes nil, and we'll do this for the reload. So this will actually add our page. So let's go back to here. And we're over here. That's great. Main page. Let's reload it. And I don't want to go to the help page. Okay, main page. We're home. We're about. So about is not working there. Did I not save this? I did save this. Add event listener, JS window, handle routes. Sorry, I don't want to handle the routes here. I want to set up the router. Which will, so now, again, I want to go back to the very beginning. We're here. The about page, the help page, the about page, the home page, the help page, the home page, and there you have it. So poor man's router, very quick and easy to set up. I know it's not perfect. Oh, and then also you'll notice that we've got our history going, and I guess that's what the replace state has to do with. So poor man's router, I understand everything that's going on. Now, it doesn't do everything, but I understand it so far. So I'm much more comfortable with this. So what I'd like to figure out, I don't know if I'll get to it or not, because I don't really need a router in anything I'm writing right now, is how do I do it so that we don't have the, we can just do the /help. Now, I know I can do it with the /help, and it'll work. If I change this, instead of using the location here, the location hash, if I lose the location path name, and instead of hash change, there's another event, I forget what it is right now, that I can use when that changes, but I haven't figured out how to get it to not do that reload each time. So anyway, that's the next one for today, and it's basic routing. I'll put this up. Please add suggestions and thoughts, like how can we get the rest of this stuff working, what's missing, etc. There are a few more things on the table for me to put videos at, so I hope you're enjoying these, and that's it for today. Okay, bye-bye.